Good morning. Good morning. What is up? Why is that already on the screen? How are you guys doing, man? It is good to be back for Tuesday training. As always, we are here every Tuesday, doing our best to be at 9 a.m. sharp. We're running a little behind today. Apologize, but thanks for sticking in there with you. It's good to see all you viewers on the show. Mr. Joe Fraser Camper, always there supporting it. Thank you so much. Much appreciate you. And we've got a great show today. We're going to talk about something that we don't normally talk about on the show. The art of communication, right? What is it like? Like, how do you actually speak to people properly to drive sales, to build relationships and drive sales? That's what we're going to talk about today. And we have an excellent guest here to talk to us about that. And we will jump into that in a minute. So I just want to take a couple of moments just to say, you know what? It's a beautiful Tuesday. I hope you're having a beautiful Tuesday. And I hope you woke up today full with gratitude, ready to attack this day, that you get the opportunity to actually go out in the world and do some business, selling insurance, helping people, changing lives even, and creating some legacy. So this is a beautiful industry. I absolutely love it. And as always, we got a little bit of news. You know, guys, how I like to do it. So we're going to jump in real quick. I got a couple of news articles I want to share with you, and then we'll jump back on with our guest, Barry Rutten. First to go, this is a fun one. Right? Why do insurance claims go up during Halloween? Well, from candy to costumes, Halloween is a fun-filled time for all, including the thieves. And it says right here, experts say theft and vandalism-related insurance claims are often higher during this time of year. In fact, they say vandalism claims are as high as 72%. So while you're out with the children in the neighborhood, hopping, tricking, and treating, that's the perfect time for someone to take advantage of that opportunity. So people are looking to break in your house, obviously, vandalize when they know you're out. Other things it says, like lighting a candle, forgetting to put it out. Or with decorations, we're seeing a lot of people overload power strips, creates daisy chain extension cords, creates excess of heat and fire. So it says nearly 800 residential fires are reported every Halloween, which is about 13 million in property damage. So quite a bit of reasons. Another reason, injuries. People get injured on your property, right, when they're out there doing their thing. So liability claims can go up. And then vehicle theft claims also spike during Halloween, it says here, because people are leaving personal items in their cars, right? You're out there trick-or-treating, having fun. You leave something valuable inside your car. Somebody already dressed in a mask, I guess, sees it. They decide to break in and snag it. So a lot of interesting things there. I thought that was kind of an interesting article on different ways that Halloween spikes insurance claims. Pretty simple. But here's some pretty interesting stuff that's also coming on. Check this out. Amazon drone service is now going to start dropping off prescriptions starting in College Station, Texas. I thought that was an interesting place to, I guess, the test market this, so to speak, at such a small town. But starting here very soon, Amazon Pharmacy will be launching drone delivery for prescription meds within that College Station area. The pharmacy deliveries will be dropped, quite literally, outside a customer's front door within 60 minutes at no additional cost for eligible Amazon Pharmacy customers. So it says Amazon Pharmacy is teaming up with the online retailer's drone service, Prime Air, which kicked off commercial deliveries in the same city in Texas back in December. So, and if you're out there on prescriptions, you don't like driving to the pharmacy, well, if you're in College Station at least, you can get on Amazon's pharmacy program and they'll just drop it right at your doorstep. Pretty crazy. Next one, and this is the good news, right? GoodRx is pairing up with a company called Sanofi to offer insulin for $35, regardless of any insurance that you have. We know a couple of years ago, they put in some insulin caps in the Medicare program where as long as that insulin was on formulary, you'd get it for $35 max. So now GoodRx is pairing up with this company called Sanofi, but they're only offering it on Lantus, which is the most prescribed insulin out there. But regardless of what insurance you have or what your insurance situation is, you can go over to GoodRx now, get Lantus for $35. And at some point, you'll probably be able to take that, couple it up with Amazon Pharmacy, and just have it delivered right to your door via a drone. But regardless of what pharmacy you're using, regardless of your insurance, if you are on Lantus, there's about 70,000 retail pharmacies out there that will give you a 30-day access to Lantus for only $35. So we're going to see that more and more. with these insulin caps. I'm excited about it. I think that is probably one of the best rules that we've made in all of big pharma since probably forever, truthfully, to help these folks. Because there are people out there. I had clients in my personal book of business that were rationing. They were absolutely rationing their insulin so that they could afford it. So they're taking their own health, they're taking a big risk with their health by trying to ration out their insulin. So pretty crazy stuff. So that's a little bit of the news that I got today. Let's jump in the show. And obviously, we do our best to bring great guests onto the show. But something else that I do want to make sure that I mention is our sponsor real quick, because without our sponsor, this show really doesn't happen. We don't have the opportunity to talk to some of these different guests. And I've talked about this group before, but if you haven't seen it, MetaZeus is out there to help you with your Medicare Advantage retention. This is an absolutely phenomenal platform. I'm beginning to use it myself. If you're an agent out there in the Medicare Advantage space, you already know how hard it is to find out when any of your business gets flipped from year to year, whether it's getting flipped during a special election period, during the AEP, during OEP, whatever that case is. Most times you don't even find out that your business is getting flipped for 2 to 3 months later when you actually get that charge back. But MetaZeus is out there now. You can check out the link in the comments. This platform will basically inform you within 24 hours of one of your clients getting their Medicare Advantage plan flipped. Maybe you wrote them for Humana and they decided they wanted to flip to Aetna, or somebody called them and got them on WellCare or United Healthcare, whatever it may be. Instead of having to wait that 2 or 3 months, you're going to find out in real time within 24 hours. You can find out that your business is getting replaced, and you can put in a good retention phone call and get that stuff saved. Very, very simple, easy to use. Check out the link in the comments. It's like $89 a month. You can load up your book. You can monitor your entire book. You get real-time alerts. And truthfully, if you're writing any decent volume of business out there, at $89 a month, that's basically, you just need to save 3 apps a year to make the system pay for itself. And I can tell you that the numbers, as I remember, were roughly about 8 apps out of 100 that you can easily save. So if you're writing a book of about 100, you get some that fall off, you can easily go back and grab 8 apps, get them retained, make money, and keep that book rolling. So check out MetaZeus. Again, links are in the comments. And with that said, I'm ready to get our guest on. This guy, I had a chance to meet this guy virtually, like I meet most people nowadays, right? That's the world that we live in, where we meet most people virtually. And I was introduced to him through some of the different Facebook groups that we all roll around in and talk. And him and I are going to be participating in an event in January. I think it's January 25th, if I remember correctly, in Scottsdale, which is the DTDW event, which means do the damn work. And so this gentleman and I will both be sharing a stage. Excited about that event. We took some time to peel aside, and we had our little private Zoom call where we got to know each other, find out kind of a little bit about what each other is about. And this gentleman, I'm super excited about it because he's going to bring a topic to light in this show today that we don't normally talk about: the art of communication, how you actually use the right words, use the right cadence, use the right tonality so that you can properly get people to open up to you, right? So that you can do good discovery, so that you can find out what these people need, so you can obviously bring it to them properly. So with that said, from Magnetic Sales Systems, please put your virtual hands together for Mr. Barry Rutten. What is going on, sir?
Hey, I was just trying to figure out who had more gray hair, you or me.
I probably have more gray, but at least I also have more hair.
I think you have a little bit more. My wife was starting to cut my hair during Zoom, and I looked down and I was like, whose hair is that? My hair used to be brown. When did that happen?
Yeah, it seemed to happen overnight one day. I woke up and was like, holy crap, what is that? Who is that guy?
Right.
Well, how are you, sir?
I'm very good. This conversation comes with a disclaimer. And that is that it's 7:18 in the morning here, out in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. I'm near Seattle, and so I'm a night owl, and so it was interesting getting up early. But I'm excited to talk to you. I really enjoyed our one-on-one conversation, and I love the energy that you bring. I was kind of pumped up by the way the music. I kind of that hockey kind of music, waiting to get started. So I was looking for my skates. I was looking for my stick, but I'm ready to go.
Right on. Well, it's certainly good to have you. I've certainly had a chance to get to know you a little bit with a few of our calls, and I've done some research. But just most of the people in our group, I don't think are aware who Barry Rutten really is. So just take a little moment, introduce yourself, and just kind of tell them who you are and what you're about real fast.
Sure. Well, I don't want to go all the way back to kindergarten, but I will go back to law school. I had a big mouth and I didn't know what I wanted to do like a lot of people. And so I jumped through all the hoops to get into law school and got there and realized I have absolutely no interest in this at all. So I was there very briefly, but this was the University of San Diego. And I went across the street to the undergraduate library in the basement where all the professional periodicals were. And I was like, well, before I tell my mom I'm leaving law school and breaking her heart, what do I want to do with my life? And I just kind of walked the stacks and I came across the Journal of Financial Planning. And, read 12 issues of any professional magazine, you can get a pretty good feel for what they do and what their issues are. And I went, clients without the negativity, because that's what was attractive to me about laws. This idea of helping people and having clients. But it was just, the perception I had at that time was that it was very negative, civil or criminal. I wish I had known that there was like entertainment and sports law. Might have stuck it out. So I got into it, and throughout my career, I've kind of been on both sides of the fence. I've been on the producer side and done very well. I've been on the sales leadership and sales management side and done well with that. I guess the bottom line about me is, number one, I really like turning the light bulb on for people. I like getting them to see how their business and their communication can be different. I've been called a wordsmith. And I think it's not just the words, it's the delivery. A lot of Van Muller. I think he and I share a similar philosophy in that, the words and the delivery matter. And if I may, I'm just going to tell a really quick story to tell you what set me on this path.
Yeah.
So in one of my sales roles, I was, had a financial planning practice. Gentleman comes in. I was 26 years old. He was probably 72. It looked like they pulled him right out of Hollywood casting. Tall, thin, good-looking, gorgeous hair, silver everything. One of those Adidas three-stripe kind of tennis outfits, sparkling white sneakers. And to compress the story, he had several $1 million of assets that he needed to turn into income. And I was pretty new. And I was stalling. So I said something to the effect of, how long did it take to acquire this money? Was it sudden or did it take a while? And he said, well, it took my whole life and saving. And I said, well, if you don't mind, I'd like to consult some other people. I'd really like to give this some thought. I don't want to just spit out a recommendation. I'd like to do some analysis. And, I don't think it would matter if it was, this Thursday, next Thursday, or 2 weeks from Thursday, as long as we get it right. And I see him sort of nodding, and I should have stopped talking. That was the right time to stop talking. But oh no, I kept talking. And I said, in some fit of honesty, because my hands are sweaty and my stomach has a knot in it, and I don't want to do anything wrong with this money that took your whole life to accumulate. And as the words came out, I was like, oh no, what have I done? And he stared at me, stared right through me practically. And I thought he was mad. And because there was this what seemed like an eternal pause, but it was just a couple of seconds. And he said, son, 72, 26, you can get away with it. Son, if you just keep talking to people who look like me the way you just did, you'll do really good in this business.
Huh.
I played that line over my head for probably 6 months, because at the time, like anyone who's new to this industry, I was struggling. I was 100% commission. The bulk of my income came from life insurance sales at that time and investments, which is kind of a slow road. And I was getting objections and rejections and stalls and delays and torture and, working 12, 15 hours and running illustrations. And, I'm old enough where we ran illustrations and had to print them to a printer because there was no PDFs. There was no preview. It's just like, oh, why are these two things different? I'm going through boxes and boxes of paper. And it was just a really fortunate thing that set me on the path of becoming sort of fascinated with human communication and how the words you say matter, how you say the matter, and how you feel when you're saying the matter.
Mm-hmm.
So I could give you the best words in the world, but if you don't believe them, if you don't feel them, if it's not genuine, people are going to know. And let's be honest, the older you get, the wiser you get, usually because of bad experiences. And they know, they can tell that you're full of it or genuine. And I had no mentors. I had no structure. I mean, none of the stuff that exists today. There's no podcast. There was no YouTube videos teaching everything of how to change a tire to sell insurance. I had no manager, no upline, all this hoo-ha. I was strictly independent. And I just started to play around. And I would experiment with, I would say something. And I'd watch them really carefully. And did I get a good reaction, bad reaction, mediocre reaction? Say it a few times, bad, 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 throw it out. Good, good, good. Just keep going down that line. And a few things started to emerge. Number one, people really liked analogies, visual stories. I get much better reactions when I actually ask questions than made speeches. And I really started to experiment with the intonation, the tone, the pitch, the speed, the pace, the volume of my voice. And just to not bury the lead, slower is better. Quieter, softer is better. Later in my career, I had a job where I was the director of financial services for a large bank. And we ran an insurance and investment and property and casualty shop. It's pretty big. And I reported to the CFO. One of the things I noticed about the CFO is whenever he was really serious, he talked really quiet, really slowly. And that really sank in. And so, throughout your career, you pick up these little things, these little observations if you're paying attention. And the other thing I paid a lot of attention to were the analogies in life that matched up to our business. What else was going on in my life that I could use to pull in? And we'll talk about that later. I want to share with your audience the 3 professional positioning analogies that have served myself and my agent clients that work really well. They're pretty powerful.
It's an outstanding one. You've shared that with me. I definitely want to hear it again.
So, if you've been in this business any length of time, I think that the number one thing we all struggle with is objections, rejections, stalls, delays, buyer's remorse, not taken policies, lack of implementation, changing of minds. And certainly happened to me a lot. And I just was like, why does this happen? Why? Like, to us, it's all so obvious, right? They need this. They should have this. And what I found is that ain't how the human brain works.
Right.
I actually, I guess I'm a nerd this way, but I actually was getting magazines like Psychology Today. And again, no internet. We had to read actual print.
Yep.
I don't have children, but a lot of people think I do when I speak about all kinds of issues, for example, related to children with life insurance and guardianships and providing stability post a parental death. And people say, where'd you get that? Well, I actually subscribe to Child Psychology Today and would read articles about the destabilization of a child from the loss of a parent. And then I take that and bring that forward into the conversation. So I've really studied this for a long time. I think a lot of people have, done some good work in, hey, what's a good way to combat an objection, or 365 ways to overcome objections, whatever. And I said, you know what? What if I could prevent them from happening in the first place?
Absolutely.
What if I could take it from 100% down to 5% or 10% and only spend a small amount of time dealing with the outliers instead of every single conversation? And anyone who's studied human physiology knows that our brains as humans develop in 3 stages, sort of a primordial, or what people call a lizard brain, and then the emotional brain, the logic brain. The problem is, in our industry, our products come from product providers who are very logical, and they tell us to talk about features and even stretch and talk about benefits. And the problem is the human brain is like a filter. some of you may recognize the word or phrase reticular activating system. And some of us in sales know that from whatever you concentrate on, you tend to then see more actively. It's a way to focus. But the reticular activating system at the physiological level is a screen. It's a safety device. It's a filter that both filters out the extraneous, because we're all just hit with so much in every moment.
Oh, yeah.
Autism, to some degree, is the lack of a reticular activating system, that it's just overwhelming. The world's overwhelming. And not a lot of people realize that just sometimes they're shut down because their system can't process what's coming at them. And so, but in a regular functioning person, that reticular activating system is a safety device. And it goes back to when we were, running around with spears and, trying to catch our food. We would learn shortcuts, like those berries, tasty. Those berries, you're dead. That cliff, stay away from it. So the brain wires in shortcuts to deal with the world and deal with life. If you think about it, if you drove to work or drove yesterday, how much did you think about, I have to start moving my foot from the gas to the brake and start applying pressure to the brake pedal and just sense the stop. We don't do that. It just become a shortcut. If we had to think about that, we couldn't think about anything else.
Exactly.
And so what happens is when you start out a conversation with, I have this great product, you should buy it. Essentially leading with product or pivoting to a product, depending on your orientations. Like if you're in property casualty, they tend to teach you, pivot to this other product like life insurance. And what happens is, because of people's past experiences, they have created a shortcut, which is you start pitching me product, or God forbid, bring up life insurance or something else, and I'm going to put up the hand. I'm going to stop you. And once that filter has said, this is dangerous, right? Because it used to be those berries are dangerous, or that I used to say saber-toothed tiger, but I realized that those two things didn't exist at the same time in history. But whatever was dangerous to a caveman, they avoided. They learned to avoid it. And so right now in modern society, we're the dangerous thing. We're both salespeople and sell insurance. It's like a double whammy, right? It's like, run away. This is not where I want to be. And once that door closes, it is very hard to open. So how do you avoid that? Well, you don't ask people about their products. Who has your life insurance? Who has your Medicare? That's first of all, in the beginning of a conversation, is kind of an irrelevancy. And it doesn't get you really where you want. So where do you want to be? Where you want to be is you want to create a situation where at the end of the conversation, the person says to themselves, I want. We tend to spend a lot of time in you should. And if we can move away from you should thinking to creating an I want, then we're kind of unstoppable. Because if you think about it, whenever you've wanted to buy something, shoes, gun, sports car, clothes, food that's tasty, once you want something, really nobody can kind of get in your way, right? You just do it, right? And here's the interesting thing. You're transacting, right? You're giving them your money in exchange for the thing willingly and happily. And yet when it comes to insurance, a lot of times it's you're just trying to sell me something, and I'm insurance poor, and all you want is more premium. And when the outcome of that purchase is tremendously beneficial, and the absence of that purchase is tremendously harmful if the bad thing should happen to the good person at the worst possible time. And so how do we create I want? We use human physiology to our advantage. Because here's what's interesting. And no one talks about this, which is really cool. That reticular activating system I talked about, that defensive guardrails that are around every interaction you have every single day. Questions go underneath the reticular activating system, whereas statements don't. So if I ask you, Tony, what would be the financial consequences on you and your family if your income stream was suddenly shut off tomorrow and money stopped being deposited into your checkbook? What would the impacts or consequences be?
Have to start an OnlyFans page, probably.
Yeah. And that's a big money proposition. I don't know why you haven't started it yet. But what the brain does is, did you notice that even to give the funny answer of an OnlyFans page,
right,
you had to process the meaning of the question. And while it's working on it, it saw something, right? You saw a picture in your mind of some level of poverty, and you already started working on, oh, I got to come up with a solution, right? I essentially asked you what I call a survival question. You came back with a survival answer, right? Notice I didn't kill you, right? I didn't actually say why the money stopped, right? I didn't say you're dead. I didn't say you're disabled. I didn't say you lost your job. I just said if the money stopped, what would happen? What would the consequences be? And your brain started working on that. Your brain did not go defensive, 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 because your brain didn't put anything on me.
Correct.
It only started working on the question, right? All the focus for me went away, right? Your brain just went right to the question. And the reason for that is your brain has to process meaning in higher levels of your brain and gets you out of that primordial lizard kind of brain, which just reacts emotionally, right? And so what we want to do is make sure we're asking two types of questions: visual-based questions and emotion-generating questions, because you can't verbalize unless you can visualize. So if I can get you to visualize something and then talk about the thing you're seeing, if I can get you to visualize the negative outcome, or conversely, the positive outcome, and then I can get you to describe it, I can coach you to describe it. I can use words like paint me a picture, tell me what you're seeing in your mind's eye, describe it to me. So these are little commands, but essentially they're very short phrases, and it puts it all back on them to speak, to describe. And when it comes from within them, they could not have spoken without have visualizing, and then they feel it. So now at least we've got into the next level up in the brain. We've gotten out of the lizard brain, and we're in now the emotional brain, which is, and I'm going to say this twice, everybody hears it, which is where all the sales are made. Repeating, all of your sales are made in the emotional brain, not the logical brain, right? And you've all probably heard, we buy with emotion, justify with logic. Right?
Yep.
And yet, how do most of us sell? You should have this because if this happens, you're not going to have any of this. So you need all logic, logic, logic. And the logic brain does not purchase. The logic brain justifies, right? It's passed off from the emotional brain to the logic brain. If logic was the purchaser, no one would own like a $80,000 Mercedes.
Right.
Everybody would own Toyota Camrys because they still have the steering wheel and engine and 4 tires. They're still going to get you from point A to point B reasonably comfortably. So why do you pay double? Because of how you feel driving your Mercedes and basically how you look when you drive past the mirrored window. And so what we want to do is we want to avoid objections by getting the client to essentially sell themselves on the outcomes that they desire or the outcomes they want to avoid, and ask them questions. And remember, questions are essentially statements in nice wrappers, really. I can ask you a question that sounds like a question, but essentially I'm telling you a story. So let's say I'm trying to convince a parent to see the consequences of having their home taken away due to a mortgage foreclosure because they lost an income. Tony, what's it like being the new kid in school? What's it like being the new kid in school in a probably not very nice neighborhood? Because what kind of neighborhood do you have to move to if your home was foreclosed on and your mortgage, your credit was ruined because you didn't pay your mortgage because the income was lost? What's that like psychologically in terms of the emotional, psychological stability of your child when they're already dealing with the loss of a parent? And so the questions are creating visuals. The questions are creating emotions. It sounds like I'm asking questions, and I am. I mean, by the way, I'm rattling those all off for the purposes of time. These are done spaced out.
Sure.
We allow for the answer, right? And this could apply to virtually anything, any topic you want someone to see. The more serious the topic, the more heavy the question, the more your voice has to deepen, the more your pace has to slow down, the more your volume needs to drop, and the more spaced out the phrases. I'm going to go back to visuals. If you want someone to absorb what you're saying, say it slowly enough to allow the visuals to form. If you speak too quickly, by the time you've moved on to the second set of words, their brain hasn't had a chance to process and create the visual of the first set of words, and eventually it all just sounds like bzzz. they're not
Yeah.
really. The other thing is we are communicating how important we think this is by the speed of our speech. A lot of us get nervous, think the person's becoming impatient, and speak faster to try and, quote, get it all in. The reason is your past experience tells you you're going blah, 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 talking at them. You see them tuning out. You see them cutting you off because you were doing a lot of you should and a lot of telling instead of a lot of asking. And so your past experience has actually trained you, I better speak fast before I get cut off. And you just create this kind of perpetual downward spiral of, and think about the words people use to describe salespeople. One of the first phrases, fast talking.
Fast. Smooth talker, fast talker.
Fast talker, right?
Absolutely.
What do you slip by me by speaking really fast? See, we should pay attention to that. And I always have. I was, why do people feel that way? Well, it's because obviously people were speaking to them really quickly and people felt that they were just trying to slide something past them. So I would say that from the objection avoidance standpoint, I think you can do a lot to create trust. And I think you can do a lot to have the person sell themselves on the proper actions by getting them to sell themselves, by getting them to describe the outcomes and desires they have for whatever that situation is. And you can get them to do it either in the positive. What do you want? Positive outcome. What do you want to avoid? Negative outcome. The other thing is there's what I call the rule of three. Any of those interactions should always have three things, right? So, you make sure that bill collectors aren't hounding you. You preserve your good credit, and you can focus on getting back on your feet. So that would be like a set of three recovery things. So all of your medical expenses are covered. You're not going to be damaged financially by an unexpected medical bill, and you're going to be free from worry about going to the doctor and it bankrupting you. So just anything you deliver is a set of positives or negatives, deliver them in sets of three. That's another unit of how the brain works. The brain likes units of three. Just interesting, weird.
Yeah. It's funny because some of this stuff overlaps with stand-up comedy. I'm not a stand-up comedian. I love stand-up comedians. I've done a couple of sets here and there, but like there's certain things that you're saying that completely overlap in another form of communication, right? And anybody that's really good at stand-up comedy, the reason they're really good at it is because they know tonality. They understand when to talk fast. They understand the rule of three, timing. Yeah. All of those same objects come in to generate a laugh. What are they doing? They're telling stories to stimulate emotion, to get you to buy into them, right? So that they keep you in. Same thing as here, yeah. Right? It's interesting to kind of see that overlap.
It's funny. I cannot tell a joke at all. Can't retain them. Can't tell them. I listen to stand-up comedy in the car when I'm driving, and I one to just enjoy the time and pass the time. But I've become fascinated with the delivery of comics, how they wait and how they time, and it's interesting. There's a I guess you'd call him pretty coarse comic, Anthony Jeselnik. And yes. He has fantastic tonality and delivery. And what's amazing is his comedy is based on the idea of the unexpected punchline, right?
Correct.
The diametrically opposed. You think you're getting to here, and he goes over there. And I'm fascinated by that because that's, again, going back to that reticular activating system. If a person is hearing what's unexpected, unknown, or the brain is unsure of, and that goes to just language and phrasing that it hasn't heard before, it will remain open and receptive to the new communication until it can make a judgment about it. So, for example, I don't ask people about life insurance. I ask people about their income replacement plan. Why? Because they're not 100% sure. I mean, they may think they know what I mean, but I'm trying to use phrasing that they can't immediately reject.
Yeah, because they have a preconception.
They have a preconception about what it
what
is.
life insurance is.
And you trigger that shortcut of cut it off, right? Whatever that is. What I think would be helpful here is maybe switch gears to the other side, which is if you do get the objections, how do you deal with that?
Sure.
And I think we tried this earlier, and I didn't have much success putting this on screen. I apologize. I wanted to show you an infographic of this, but I'm going to just describe it, and I think you can see it. And at the end, maybe we can share with how they can get a hold of all the stuff I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
So I literally have a book on my shelf somewhere. It's buried, but I don't even look at it. It's a big binder. It must be 4 inches thick. And I bought it a long time ago at the beginning of my financial planning career. And it's literally like 658 objection handling phrases. And it's so massive that it's in tabs by section. And I thought that just can't be like the way I want to spend my life, right? Trying to memorize 658 objections. And I think if you think about any interaction you've ever had with another salesperson,
mm-hmm.
we might state an objection and the person immediately starts trying to talk us out of it.
Right.
And if you think about it, we get insulted first. That's the first reaction. Like you're not listening to me. Think about any customer service interaction with like I don't want to get sued, so I won't name names, but like a cable TV provider or a cell phone provider. I just had it yesterday where something happened and I actually called them, and they're clearly not listening to you.
Right.
They're just talking over you, talking through you, reading the script book of what to say.
Yeah.
And it's insulting, and you get madder and madder, and right, but they're just waiting for you to curse so they can hang up.
Yeah.
And
you can't.
And so I started to think, well, again, I'm just wired where I just started to think, well, why is that? Like, what is going on? What is going on here in this interaction? Why are these two human beings, at loggerheads? And so over time, I developed kind of a strategy, and some of it is accidental. I'll be honest with you. A lot of times, a lot of this stuff came from being frustrated and mad,
mm-hmm.
and just deciding I didn't care. So I just blurt something out. And what I came up with over time was an acronym for the process that I found worked perfectly every time. And so the acronym is SAVER. So I'll spell it SAVER. And it's kind of fortunate that it spells SAVER, like save the sale,
sure.
Save the business, right? That's just lucky. I didn't start out that way. So SAVER is an acronym, and I'll quickly lay out the words, and then we'll go back down and break it down. So S is for stop. Stop selling. If you get an objection and then try and keep selling, you're just going to dig a deeper and deeper and deeper hole you're not going to get out of. It's just that simple. And so you have to be aware of, I got an objection. Exactly, Joe. I got an objection. I got to stop. Just stop selling. Stop. Okay. And now here's where everybody messes up. The number one rule, so you're getting Barry's number one rule of objection handling. Never, ever, ever respond to an objection with a statement. If your response, your initial communication to someone with an objection ends with a period, you've done it wrong. You must, and this is what the A stands for, is ask. You have to ask a question or series of questions. The only rule is you're not allowed to ask why. Okay, so in any form of any question you ask, you're not allowed to ask the word why. And I see your wrinkled brow, Tony, and you're like, why is that? What? You see, you came back with a why, right?
Well, I would think, why do you feel that way, or why does that make you feel that way?
I'm going to go back to how our brains develop and how we develop through childhood and adulthood. What's the number one question 2-year-olds ask?
Why?
Why? As an adult, we find the word why insulting, like justify it. Okay. So the natural, easy, quick, this is again where you don't tend to put a lot of thought, but the natural, easy tendency is to say why. Why is a challenge word. You're challenging me. That's the exact opposite of what you want.
Yeah. Shit, my sister's 57. She still uses why too much.
Exactly. So what do you want to use instead? You want to use what I call curiosity questions. Stop selling, get curious. Curiosity is king. If you can let go of the sale for a second and I wonder what's going on in their head, their life, their past, that causes them to be in this moment saying something like that. And so I'm going to ask them all kinds of short little questions. What makes you say that? May I ask where that feeling comes from? Have you experienced that in the past? My favorite, how come? And if you're physically present or on camera, with a little shoulder shrug is really nice. How come? Okay. Notice the uplift in my voice, questioning tone, higher pitch, upraised eyebrows. How come? A couple of things going on here. Number one, asking a question that asks the person to clarify the objection is incredibly respectful. If you try to start educating them right away after they throw out the objection, disrespectful.
Yeah. You obviously don't care.
You don't care. I'm just
shits about what they just said.
Through you, right? So if I ask you questions and follow-up questions and go a little deeper, the person is going to feel at least heard and respected.
Yeah.
So that later, when you earn the opportunity to educate them, change their positioning, hopefully, it's much more collaborative and not combative.
Okay? Right.
So I got to stop selling. I got to ask questions. I got to use a curiosity tone, and I'm seeking to understand, not overcome. And I want them to emote. The other thing, and this was what was really freeing for me, like it took all the pain away for this process for me. There's an old-fashioned phrase of handing them back the hot potato, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just trying to sell me something, Tony. Huh. Where's that feeling come from? Boom. I've handed you back the hot potato. It's not my job to explain back to you why I'm not doing that. Right. Or defend myself. You've basically accused me of doing something. I'm not owning it. Here you go. You just threw out some bomb. We'll call it a hot potato. I'm handing it back to you. But I'm doing it in a way that's very respectful and hopefully insightful as to where it's coming. I mean, that's a reasonable question. You're just trying to sell me something. Have you had other experiences like that in the past? Right? It's a confidence thing. They're so used to throwing out those kinds of objections and seeing salespeople crumble and crush and, get all verklempt, that it has trained them that it works. Yeah. They're going to keep doing it. That's their shortcut, right? Can you give me a little more insight into that? I want to make sure I understand. Hot potato, they've got it back. Sit back and relax. The stopping and the asking is the ultimate stall. It lets you think a little bit. It lets you think about what kind of objection is this, right? What am I getting here? What am I really hearing? If I'm hearing things like you're just trying to sell me something, I'm not interested. I already have that covered. I don't believe in. I don't want to spend more money on. I need to think about it. I need to ask my spouse. I need to ask my gardener, whatever the excuse is. You've got to kind of think about what kind of objection is that, where it's really coming from. And you need to buy yourself some time to think. And so by giving them the respect of asking it and giving them the respect of clarification, I get to the V in SAVOR, which is either validate or verify. The reason it's two different words is because I'm either going to validate what they're saying is reasonable, but educate them as to why it doesn't apply in this situation. Mm-hmm. Or I'm going to verify my understanding of what they said, but not validate it because it's not valid. Correct. Right. And so I got to be careful to not agree that one of their, aggressive statements is valid, right? You're just trying to sell me something. So for example, if you said I'm busy, right? If I just feel sympathy for you, that's not helpful. I could empathize with you, right? Sympathize and empathize, two different things. I could empathize with you. We're all busy. But think about the question. I'm too busy to come in for the appointment. I'm too busy to meet with you. Think about this. Stop selling. Ask a question. Be a human being, right? Here's the question.
Yeah.
What's got you so busy these days? Wow. They're actually going to tell you about something about themselves. I've got 3 kids. They're in 4 sports each. All I do is chauffeur and make meals and do laundry. I totally understand, right? And, if whatever you're empathizing with them is. But now they feel heard. But here's the thing. What most agents will do, they just keep plowing through, right?
Yeah. And that's exactly why you need life insurance.
That's why you need this, right? Because you can die. Those poor kids, right? Empathize with them, but keep being curious. Be curious at level 2, at level 3. My favorite kid-related question, especially if they say I'm really busy because of the kids, what are they into? And this just came from my observation of parents when they talk about their children saying, Sally's into Barbies, Johnny's into sports cars, or Sally's into sports cars and Johnny's into toy soldiers, whatever. What are your kids into? Which is basically activities and hobbies and things. And somewhere in there, you're going to find some kind of common ground. Like, oh, yeah, I used to really be into that. Or, kids today have so much better toys or whatever. And so don't rush through the questions. That's an opportunity to establish some common ground and show that you're a human being, right?
Absolutely.
When you get to the validate or verify, you're just simply showing and demonstrating that they've been heard.
Mm-hmm.
So if I understand you correctly, blah, 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 blah. If I've heard you correctly, blah, 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 blah. Let me recap what I think I heard, da, 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 da. And the amazing thing is all you're going to do is regurgitate what they said. And they're going to be like, yeah, exactly. Okay. So, if I heard you correctly, you need to speak with your spouse because you make decisions together. Did I get that right? And they're like, yeah, exactly. And think of the respect level that goes up because you've just taken a couple extra minutes to listen to them.
Yeah.
Now you've earned the right to educate. You can clarify, you can rephrase, you can provide an example, you can offer a different perspective, you can work to diffuse the concern, reduce the risk of what you're asking them to do. I'll talk about that in a second. Illustrate the point, paint a picture with words. If you think about it, even talking to you is risky to them. It's risky to that reticular activating. You're just dangerous to them. So almost everything you need to do in an initial reaction or throughout the sales interaction is reduce risk, reduce risk, reduce risk, reduce risk. And the only way that I found that reduces risk enough to get them to just really relax is prove to them they're in control, not you. Because if you think about it, all anybody is like, oh, you're just trying to sell me something. Oh, I'm so persuasive that not only am I going to convince you to do something you don't want to do, I'm going to take the credit card out of your wallet, process it, and then continue to charge it for the rest of time without your permission. I mean, think about that. On the face of it, ridiculous, right? But if they just blurt out some not very well-formed emotion and you don't know how to get past that, that's where you're going to stay.
Yeah.
So risk reduction is about control. And so what I kind of came up with over time, and this was just through observing the world, and I went, okay, it was one of those kind of things, was I need to compare what I do to other situations that are similar that they already do in their own lives where they still retain control. And what I call those are the 3 professional positioning analogies. This is what we were talking about before. And the 3 professions are doctor, dentist, and auto mechanic. And what's interesting is, and I want you to really hear this, I can use these reactively. I got myself in hot water. I need to get out.
Okay.
Or I can use these proactively. I'm going to try and prevent as many objections as I can. My suggestion is to use them proactively as much as possible at the beginning of conversations to suppress fear, anxiety, risk, rather than trying to overcome it. It's way harder, way steeper mountain to overcome than to suppress, right? So how do the analogies work? Well, let's start with your doctor, right? Fundamental sort of Hippocratic oath stuff, first do no harm. Doctor's process: examine, diagnose, prescribe. So if I share with the person, I work very much like your doctor. Your doctor is concerned with your physical health and well-being. I'm certainly care about your physical health and well-being. I'm just way too squeamish to be a doctor. This is how I help people. I'm concerned with your financial health and well-being. And yet I follow the exact same process. First, we're going to do an examination, but I'm just not going to make you wear that silly gown, or I'm not going to use a cold stethoscope. And certainly, I don't do blood draws and things like that. My questions are my diagnostic tools. I say that again. My questions are my diagnostic tools, right? And so I want to then, give them that analogy and say, and so what I'm going to do is, once I really have a good sense of what's going on, I can provide you with my findings. I can tell you what I've diagnosed for my examination of your situation. And if something is necessary to correct, to fill a gap, to accomplish an objective, I'm going to prescribe a solution. I want you to know that, very much like being the medical patient, you remain in complete and total control.
Right.
You get to decide whether to go to the pharmacy and fill the prescription, buy the ointment. My favorite word, ointment. Or whether you schedule the surgery or not. This just happened to me in current life. I have some arthritis in my shoulder. They're actually recommending that I have shoulder surgery. It was this big push to get it done in November. And I was like, well, my insurance is on a fiscal year, not a calendar year. I don't want to be in surgery when they're trying to cram through as many patients as possible before the end of the year.
Right.
I delayed my surgery till February, right? After the do the damn workshop in Scottsdale, right? I don't want to have a scar in Scottsdale. And so you remain in complete and total control. So there's the education, there's the risk reduction. And the person's like, oh yeah, I don't have to do anything. Now you've removed all of the fear and anxiety of this happening. So the doctor analogy works really good when you really want to make sure the person feels like they're in control and you really want to explain your process.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm going fast here. There's more to this. The dentist analogy is for the people who say, everything's fine, everything is great, don't need anything, it's all good, got that covered. The dentist analogy says that, very much like your dentist, we need to kind of see the hidden stuff, the stuff we don't see or feel, much like a cavity that's forming. We don't know it until it's a really big problem usually.
Yep.
Feel it with our tongue. By that time, it's a pretty big hole. And if you wait too long, you're going to end up with a root canal. So much like the dentist, first what I'm going to do is take some x-rays. Although I'm not going to poke around your mouth with a sharp metal object, I am going to ask you a lot of questions. Those are my diagnostic tools. And please, when we meet, no rinsing and spitting, okay? So I see everybody laughs. So a little humor, injected at the right moment, also makes you a person, not an insurance salesperson.
Yeah, removes walls, removes barriers.
Yeah, everybody laughs at rinsing and spitting. And so, I asked them, anytime your doctor discovers a cavity during that annual checkup, do they fill the cavity right then and there? They say no. And I say, how come? And they say, well, I'm not sure. They're not ready to do it. The cavity filling appointment takes more. They haven't blocked off enough time. You're just an annual checkup. You go outside and you schedule it with the scheduler. But you could just keep walking out the door.
Right.
You can schedule it and not come back. See, you're in control. You get to decide if you fill the cavity or not. You get to decide if this evolves from cavity to root canal or lost tooth. Small things become big things, but you're still in control. You're the patient. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. And now they're chill. Now they're relaxed. One of my favorite ones, and I didn't know this was one of these things until just one day it just kind of clicked and dawned on me, is the auto mechanic. Have you ever been to like a car dealership or an independent, auto mechanic, and they say, well, we're going to do a 21-point safety check.
Yeah.
and we're going to put your car up in the rack, and we're going to shine a flashlight, we're going to yank on things and test things and plug in our computer testers, and we're going to come back to you with a report. And what does that report look like? And I want them to tell me. And if they struggle a little bit, I was like, remember, it's like a green column and a yellow column and a red column, and I get check boxes. Oh, yeah. So what does the green mean? See, I want them to talk. That means everything is okay. What does the yellow mean? Well, something might be coming down the road. Something's wearing out. What does the red mean? It's urgent. It's serious. I should do that. So if they come back and your brakes are checked off, and normal brakes are, when brand new, are 11 millimeters and yours are 2 millimeters, and they recommend you getting new brake pads, what are you going to do? I'll probably replace the brake pads. I work the same way. Do you have to replace the brake pads? No, you can keep hoping you stop at the stoplights and intersections, but you don't have to. They can't make you. Same with me. My job is to point out what is serious or what could become serious, and you get to decide whether or not you want to address that. Now we come to so all the stuff I'm talking about now is the E, right? And there's lots and lots and lots of other examples of the E's that I teach, but I use those as my best example of it. The R in savor is resume, right? Because I got to at some point get back on track.
Yeah.
This is like a detour around, right? My start to my end, it's got a pothole in the middle of the road. I got a detour around it. Now I'm coming back and I'm merging back on the road. So hopefully you've done this process well, and they've kind of bought into the education piece, however you've done that. And then you say, well, with that in mind, can we continue our conversation? With that in mind, can we proceed with the application, right? So you have to get permission to merge back onto the road.
Absolutely.
Have I accomplished the detour appropriately? And I can tell you that what's really interesting is that I've had agents I work with use this with their spouses and kids. There's some kind of conflict.
Yeah.
Stop trying to push your way of thinking through. Ask some questions. Or have they been heard? Have you considered this? Oh, okay. Now resume whatever was going on. And I never thought about it that way, but I had people, I used that on my husband last night. And it worked really effectively. It got the conversation down from a really heated spot. I felt heard, or he felt heard, or she felt heard, which allowed them to listen to my perspective and my story or my example or whatever. And then it got us, back on track.
Absolutely. So, is this all part of your magnetic sales systems, kind of your platform, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is. I've actually carved out a piece of it and put what I just described into a little kit that agents can get. It's like $97 or something.
Okay.
So they get. I have some pretty cool infographics that show it and give examples of each of these, and then there's all the scripts, the professional positioning analogies come with that and all. The reason I don't give it away for free is because I'm as guilty as anybody. I get for free, I don't use, right? Anything
nobody values anything for free.
Nobody values anything. So it's just a little like, hey, maybe I'll actually read this if I paid a few bucks for it. But
right.
My goal is to help agents be able to do the three main tasks in their insurance career. Sell appointments, and I did not misspeak. Setting appointments is the wrong way to think about it, because effectively that's the scariest thing that we have to overcome to start with, right? Is I'm going to spend time with this scary insurance salesperson. So we're selling the appointment. So how do we sell that appointment? How do we position ourselves so it doesn't sound like a product pitch and sounds like a collaborative conversation? Conducting the appointment. What structure are you using, and how are you communicating to get the person to buy into what it is you do and how you do it in a way that eliminates all the other competitors and has them feel like, oh, this is my person, right? And then the last part is, how do you actually make the sale and prevent the buyer's remorse? And I'll give you a hit on the buyer's remorse. Do we have time to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So buyer's remorse is that same brain system just coming in later. So I'm sure we've all had a certain circumstance where I've made the sale. I've practically spent the commission in my head already. And then 2 days or 2 weeks later, the person comes back and says, I've changed my mind. I found out my Uncle Joe does this. I'm going to do it with him. I read on the internet. Stop listening after that, because it'll be painful. But why is that? you probably sold under a you should instead of an I want. And the way the brain works is if I was kind of talked into and convinced to do something, a you should sale, your brain actively has doubt and actively works to unwind it.
Yep.
If you made a decision, your brain fights to reinforce it, fights to stick with it, right? Even if it's dumb, right? In fact, maybe your dumbest purchases are the ones we fight the hardest to hold on to, right? And so I've got to prepare my client that they made the right decision. I've got to walk them through the conversation we had and how we arrived at it, and what they described was the outcomes and that they wanted, or the impacts they wanted to avoid, or the negative consequences they wanted to avoid, and how we arrived at that decision, and get them to acknowledge that this was a really good decision. And then I'm going to give them the mattress and Honda Accord post-sale breakdowns, right? When's the last time you bought a mattress, Mrs. Jones? Oh, it's been a long time. Have you ever noticed that, like, when you maybe buy a mattress or buy a Honda, all of a sudden, like, there's mattress ads everywhere that you didn't see before, or you're on the road, you see, like, boy, there's a lot of Hondas out here. That's the reticular activating system. That's your brain reinforcing the decision. So we've talked about a lot of topics here, and especially I think for some of your folks who are Medicare folks, where it's all out there in the news from Joe Namath to everybody, you're going to see a lot of noise. You're going to see a lot of talking. What I'm going to do is give you permission to ignore all that noise, because you've walked through this situation. We've talked through this situation. We've analyzed this situation together. We've collaborated to arrive at a really good decision that you just said you feel comfortable with. We're done with this. Move on to something else in your life. Just recognize that you're going to see it more. You're going to hear it more. You don't have to pay any attention to it. And this is a huge oversight for most agents, and actually in most selling situations, not just insurance. It could be washing machines, right? All of a sudden, you're ads for washing machines, or ads for air conditioners, or ads for siding, or whatever, roofing, or whatever. And the internet's terrible about this, because as soon as you look at something, you get 50 exposures to it from other competitors. And so you've got to do buyer's remorse prevention and coach them through it.
Absolutely. That especially comes into play in the Medicare space right now.
Oh yeah, it's just I think it's a very tough space to operate in. And the final thing is, and again, I'm sort of known as a contrarian, so I'm going to throw out a contrarian thing to everybody. Stop asking for referrals. What? A referral is not what you want. You don't want a name and a phone number. What you want, if you really think about it, is you want an introduction. You want a warm introduction.
Yeah.
If you can think about it as something you're giving them, as opposed to something they're giving you, it will completely change the tone of your voice and your delivery. If you can see yourself as kind of a gift, and I don't mean this in any kind of arrogant way, but if I can make an introduction offer, meaning I offer my time and expertise to other people they know, like, and love, who are in a similar situation, would benefit from the kind of conversation we have. You have to have confidence in your conversation to do that. Instead of, I get paid in 3 ways, or, the way you can help grow my business, or the greatest compliment or gift you can give my business is a referral. Blech. I find that disgusting. Sorry to be so direct, but it's not their job,
right,
to build or grow your business. That's not what they're there for. And no one wants to do it, right? No one wants to do it. It's really uncomfortable. But people want to help other people, especially people they know, like, and love. And so you have to structure your conversation in such a way, the entire experience of it, that when you get to the introduction offer, you're confident that the person is going to make an evaluation in their mind of the experience. I hope everybody really listens to this. There's going to be a moment, a second, where the person's brain is going to go, what is the experience the person I'm going to introduce going to have with this gal or guy? And if it's, oh my God, it's this high pressure product-y, blah, 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 they're going to nod and not do it.
Absolutely.
And if it's, wow, this is really relaxed and no pressure and collaborative. And I mean, they're not going to think all these words consciously. They're just going to get a feeling.
Yeah.
So your entire conversation has to be structured in such a way that they believe the introduction is going to reflect positively on them. then you'll get the introductions. And so the reason I point all these things out is I think we're all so busy, marketing and which product and which features and all these different things we're dealing with that we create these opportunities, but how many opportunities are we losing, right? The property casualty space is kind of famous, I think, for burning through customers with product pivots.
Yeah.
And hey, we haven't talked to you about your life insurance, man. You're done. You're spaghetti against the wall. Your picture's a product peddler, and it's going to be really hard to change that perception. And so we need to change how we communicate, how we think, how we feel, how we talk, so that out of the 10 opportunities your marketing generated, you're closing 7 or 8 out of 10 instead of
Correct.
2 or 3 out of 10, with no more marketing spend, which I think is really the dream for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This is great stuff. I can see. I want to bring you back and talk about this similar subject, but in a little bit different space, like in the world of networking and growing your relationships inside of your business and insurance, because I think all of this too absolutely plays in that game as well, right?
Sure, definitely.
We've already had a couple of people ask, like, where do we find info on your system? Like, how do people get in touch with you? Where can they go look into the magnetic sales system and learn some more about this?
Sure. So my website, and I'll tell you, it's not pretty. Spent a lot of time on it.
Make sure it's included in the comments.
It's theinsurancesalesdoctor.com, theinsurancesalesdoctor.com. My little tagline is the cure for what ails your insurance sales.
Nice.
And then you'll put in the show notes, I guess. There's a little kit they can get, the Saver objection handling system. So you get the infographics, so you can kind of see the whole process for both setting appointments and conducting appointments. I call them the slippery 6 for appointment selling, and the sinister 7 for the actual sale. And then you'll get all the scripts that I described, all the education language, and those 3 professional positioning analogies kind of all written out and explained, so that they know exactly how to deliver that. And then I'm going to also probably throw in there some links to some videos of me teaching it and describing it and going through it, so that they actually use it for themselves. They can train their teams with it. If you have any people who work for you, one of the greatest things you can do for them is to help them eliminate and overcome objections in a way that doesn't grind them down and wear them out and just destroy their energy. That's why this business has such a high washout rate.
Yeah.
So we'll give folks the ability to grab that. I have sort of a combination of live courses that are recorded for multi-line sales masteries for P&C agents. We have high premium life insurance sales mentorship, some other courses for the retirement advisors, and that's all kind of explained at the insurancesalesdoctor.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, man, thank you so much for coming on.
Very welcome.
I appreciate it. Thank all you guys for tuning in. We've got some of the links in the comments. We'll make sure that we're added. We'll get the site up there as well. You got it at insurancesalesdoctor.com. Jump over there, check out Barry's stuff. If they want to just reach out to you directly, what's the best way for someone just to catch up to Barry?
Barry at magneticsalessystems.com. So Barry at the word magnetic, word sales plural, systems plural.com. Barry at magneticsalessystems.com.
Perfect. So hopefully, if you want to talk to Barry a little more, reach out to him. If you haven't already gotten your tickets, right, for the DTDW event, which is Do the Damn Work, that's going to be in Scottsdale, July 25th. Get your tickets. I'll make sure that there's another link. There's already a couple of them posted in the group, but we'll get that pushed back out there. But Barry's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Carson Porter, a whole bunch of great, successful people in the life and annuity space that are going to be there. They're bringing me in as a Medicare geek. I don't know anything about life and annuities, but they're bringing me in on how you can generate leads through the Medicare space. So going to be a great event. Looking forward to that. Check out Barry's Insurance Doctor. And as always, we're here every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Central, live to try to bring you some actionable content stuff that you can put in your business and go make a little more money today. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Barry, for joining us. And we will see you next week. As a matter of fact, tune in next week. We're going to have Chase McAllister on talking about a data hygiene scope of operating procedure. Pardon me. But standard operating procedure for data hygiene in your CRM, I'm excited about that one because I'm having some data hygiene issues. But come back next Tuesday and we'll teach you about that. Until then, y'all have a great week and go out there and kill it. We're looking forward to it. See ya.